Welcome to me, where suspenseful, thrilling, and mysterious stories will draw you into a world where the lines between reality and fantasy seem to blur. When the night falls, when all the sounds gradually quiet down, leaving only your own heartbeat and breathing, that's when these stories begin. Tensions, unsolved mysteries, moments that will make you hold your breath in fear or curiosity, all are waiting for you ahead. Find a comfortable seat, dim the lights, and let this sound guide you on a journey that is not for the faint of heart. I want each of you to leave a comment sharing where you are in the world. And if you are enjoying the episodes, don't forget to give a like and subscribe to the channel now. Relax. Are you ready? If so, join me in the first story right now. Jolt Bailey settled into his window seat. He watched other passengers navigate the aisle with their carry-ons. He saw a pretty young woman in sweats making her way toward him. He thought, "Where have I seen her?" He knew they hadn't met. With hardly a glance, she slid into the seat next to him, strapped herself in, and focused on her cell phone. Bailey stared out the window at airport staff prepping the jet for takeoff. Flying was a necessary evil for him. Its charms had faded years ago, but long overdue. He needed this trip. Hearing laughter, he turned toward the woman. The cause of her humor eluded him. Sensing his attention, she turned. "Can I help you? I'm sorry. I heard you laugh, and I was curious. Not that it's any of your business. I got a text from my agent." "You're right. None of my business." She turned away. Bailey said, "I know this sounds stupid, but do I know you? You look so familiar." Suppressing annoyance, she sighed. "You're asking me if you know me? Oh, for the good old days of trite pickup lines. No, really. I'm not. I wouldn't, not with that line." He laughed. "But no, I'm married. Not hitting on you. But I could swear," she sighed. "You watch TV? I was in a movie last season." "Ah, right. Okay, cool. Sorry to bother you." Seeking distraction, he fiddled with the video display. Flight attendants worked their way up the aisle. They checked the overheads and confirmed that everyone was securely strapped in. The captain made announcements. Bailey checked his cell phone. An attendant asked him to shut it off until after takeoff. "Of course," he said. He placed it into his jacket pocket. All had settled. The plane began to taxi. Bailey corrected his perception that the exterior was moving and not the plane. "Gets me every time. Once airborne, I can relax." The plane paused and then continued rolling forward. The woman turned to him. "I didn't mean to be short with you before. Nervous flyer. I'd usually be flattered if someone recognized me. You didn't do anything wrong." Bailey smiled. "Not a problem. I imagine fans wanting attention can wear thin. Someday, maybe. But hasn't happened yet. You're one of the few who's actually recognized me." "Okay then. Hi. I promise not to stalk you." They laughed. She said, "I'm Magnolia. Are you vacationing? Work trip? Glad to meet you." "I'm Bailey." "Nope. Off to see my kids. hopefully reconcile with my wife. Long story. You? Getting married. She displayed her ring for him to admire. It was huge. The plane accelerated. This was Bailey's favorite part. Lift off. All that drama, and suddenly, the earth falling away. Bailey's separation from Irene and his twin girls defied explanation. He didn't understand it, nor did she. After 2 years apart, but with non-stop communications, they'd decided to try again. Step by step, once airborne, people relaxed. Some stood waiting for a restroom. Attendants served refreshments. Bailey nodded to Magnolia, who nodded back and looked away. A few minutes later, she became visibly agitated. What's that sound? I don't hear anything odd. You don't? Is that smoke coming from the wing? No. We're going through clouds. Her anxiety seemed to pass. Bailey tried reading. He stared out. Clouds and terrain passed beneath them. He thought about his family. The girls were getting big, about to start school. He dozed. A jolt spilled his water. Someone screamed. Magnolia grabbed the armrest. Bailey thought, air pocket. Normal. With another jolt, the engine sounded ragged. The jet rolled, and more screams followed intense turbulence. Someone fell. People braced themselves. The loudspeakers squawked noise, but no information. Bailey secured his seatbelt and saw Magnolia now crouched in a fetal position. Bailey touched her shoulder. You okay? She said. Yes. No. No. I'm a mess. Can I do something? No. It's too late. There's nothing. No one. Barely able to hear her. He held her shoulder. She babbled. He said, talk to me. I can listen. She stared with wild eyes. The jolts increased. She gasped, I doubt you. You have no idea. He agreed. Holding his gaze, she leaned in. My life's a shambles. I've hurt too many people. Used them. Betrayed their trust. Ruined lives. I stole things. He tried to relate. I'm no saint. You don't get it. Can't. Not talking about a lapse or some white lie, but a pattern. Committed crimes. Horrible. Looking down, she steeled herself. This trip. Wanted to make amends. No time now. Need to tell someone. She squeezed his hand. The plane shifted, and they held on to each other. Everyone was screaming. Overhead compartments opened. Luggage rained into the aisle. It felt like the plane was breaking up. He held his focus. Shouting, he said, You want me to listen. Let me let it out. She sobbed. I've been vicious. Left people broken in the gutter. Inexcusable. He recoiled, but increasing her grip. She pulled him closer. Did you? Shut up. Listen. can't die with this weight pressing." He pulled her closer, comforting her as much as possible. Eyes closed, their foreheads touched. They found a moment of peace amid the swirling chaos. "Thank you for putting up with me. Needed this. I love you. Love you too. For what it's worth." "Shh, don't talk. Nothing to say." With another jolt, something changed. Relief. The noise and chaos subsided. And so did the panic. Another jolt generated more screams. Then a collective sigh as the plane settled into stable flight. Soon, the captain announced preparations to land. Everyone needed to stow loose items and fasten seatbelts. Attendants assisted an injured passenger. Trying to compose himself, Bailey struggled to digest the last hour. He only wanted to see his family. The landing was uneventful. Everyone cheered when wheels touched down. Passengers lined up to begin disembarking. Magnolia stood into the aisle. She didn't look back. Bailey joined the throng behind her. He touched her shoulder. She turned. He said, "I wanted to say about what happened back there." "Oh, that? Forget it. Acting 101. Just an exercise learned in improv class." Stunned, he said, "What?" "I made it up. I'm an actor. Get it?" It took a moment to comprehend what she'd said. Right. Of course. That was it. She turned away. They didn't speak again. He set his jaw and dug his fingers into the upholstery of the seat beside him. He shut his eyes. Who does that? Whatever she'd done, or not, they'd had a real moment. Two people bonded, healed. He didn't care about Magnolia's flaws or crimes, but calling that an acting exercise, Bailey felt violated. Whatever her crimes, this was worse. She's covering, hopes I won't say anything. Plausible deniability, my ass. Bailey reeled from the last hour. He'd never felt such intimacy. Her casual dismissing of it appalled him. Still jittery from the horrible flight, he felt empty. Acting 101? Really? What a load of crap. Passing the flight attendants and pilot at the exit, he thanked them. Once off the plane, they walked toward baggage claim, each playing the role of the strangers they were. Not enough distance. Descending on the escalator, he saw them and waved. His daughters broke from their mother and ran screaming to him. Each embraced a leg. Holding tight, laughing, Irene approached with a big smile. Embracing, they felt like family. Welcome back. How was your flight? Rough. But I'm here. I'm okay. She kissed him. I'm glad. They embraced again. Over Irene's shoulder, he saw Magnolia kissing her fiancé. Their eyes met. Smiling, she looked away. Bailey looked at her future husband. Poor sap. The crowd surged as the baggage carousel rumbled. He went to it and awaited his luggage. Reaching for his suitcase, he bumped into Magnolia, also reaching for his bag. He said, "This one's mine. Check the tag." She hesitated and stepped back. "You're right. Sorry." He hoisted the bag onto its wheels and walked to join his family. Nothing more to say. The above story ends, but the suspense and thrill have never stopped. Right here is another equally interesting story. Please continue listening. Rankor. Burning. Running down the train's aisle. Sable had to try her best to avoid people. Unfortunately, she had to push some people out the way, praying to whoever was listening that she hadn't hurt them. That's not what she wanted. She took one quick moment to look back, only to see the strange man in black still chasing her. Letting out a frustrated groan, she moved her focus back to the path in front of her, fast enough to see the upcoming obstacle, the dinner cart. Every afternoon at 1 p.m., one of the staff members would bring around the lunch cart. Sable was many a time excited to see this, but today was a different story. It now stood between her and her life. God damn it! She had to think fast, looking to the sides she thought about, maybe climbing the seats. But she thought better of it. It would take too long to scramble over them. No, the only way was over the cart. Someone was definitely going to get hurt this time. The lady that was serving lunch bent down to get something for someone from under the trolley. This was her chance. She placed her first foot on the poor lady's back, shouting an apology as shocked gasps were let out around her. Her other foot landed steadily on the top of the cart. Jumping down, she landed on 2 feet, but wobbled forward, steadying herself on the arms of the chairs in front of her. But she knew she couldn't stop. Looking back again, she noticed the man in black was now fighting with people beyond the cart, smiling to herself, knowing this would but her. Sometime she kept going. When she got to the connecting door, she frantically pushed the release button. The door whizzed open. Scrambling inside, relief flooded her body when the door sealed behind her. It was only when she turned that she found herself in an empty carriage. Panic set in again when she realized that there was nowhere to hide in here. She knew her only option was to make it to the next carriage and hope to everything good that there would be somewhere to hide in there. But Sable only made it halfway to the door when the whole train jerked violently. So much so that it threw her off balance and she stumbled to the floor. To make matters even worse, as she was starting to stand up, all the lights completely shut out. Her first thought was that the energy field that kept the train safe out here in space had failed. If she wasn't terrified before, she was now for a completely different reason. Hearing the whiz of the door that she had just come through, she spun around to face it. But the darkness of the carriage was too much for her to even see her hand in front of her face, squinting as if that would make it easier for her to see. A white, hot flash lit up the entire carriage. It was only a second, but she could hear the strange man's hurried footsteps coming towards her. She knew she had to move forward. As quickly as she could, without knocking herself out, she felt for the sides of the carriage. She listened and heard the footsteps stop. Now the only sound was heavy breathing from both parties. She didn't know what to do. Her mind was racing too fast. She could make a run towards where she thought the other door was to the joining carriage. But what if she tripped or ran into something? Then the strange man in black would definitely know where she was. Just like before, there was a 1-second flash of hot white light. She caught a glimpse of the man who now stood in front of her, in the middle where she was once stood. Although this time, he was facing the wrong way. And so, luckily, he didn't see where she was this time. Lightning. That's what the flashes were. It must have been a power surge that had stopped the train. At least, that was one less thing to worry about. This was like a nightmare. And just when she thought it couldn't get any worse, a red glow of the emergency lights just above Sable's head flashed on her face. She couldn't move. She was frozen in place, like a statue. He would surely see her now. She wished for the lights to go back out before he turned, but it was too late. Looking back, she saw the man was now staring right at her. The look on his face said everything that Sable needed to know. Panic set in again, and she tried to think of what to do, how to get out of this, but her brain was scrambled. The man started to charge, seeing her life flash before her eyes. And that's when it came to her. A month earlier, she had been running from the man in black for the first time. Ever since she had boarded the train at Lorth, she had felt like someone was watching her, which then had escalated to her finding out that someone was definitely following her. She had sneaked onto the train, more than ready to start her new life. 2 years ago, she had seen off her twin brother, Sky, and his partner, Jess, who were to travel to Rankor first. Sable had to stay behind to sort out some debts before she left Lorth, which was easier said than done. It was when she started to rank in more debts that she decided that she was done. She missed her brother, and so she would get on the light train no matter what. She tried to hurry down the aisle, but she didn't want to bring any more attention to herself than what she already was. Sliding into the first available seat she came across, she sunk into the fabric, trying to make herself as small as possible. She suitably looked back from the side of the seat to see a strange guy, all in black, stop at the threshold of the carriage, scanning every seat, but not moving forward. Running from someone? Turning quickly to where the voice had come from, she hadn't noticed that she had sat in one seat of 4 that had a table in the middle. A man was sat directly in front of her. He slowly put down the book that he had been reading. His hair was a lightish, mousy brown and shoulder length. Sable noticed it had a slight wave to it. "No, I just thought I heard the dinner cart." She tried a smile, but she was still out of breath from running. Liar. The stranger leaned forward, placing both his elbows on the table that separated them. You were running from someone. You tried to make it not noticeable, at which you failed miserably at. It was quite amusing, actually. Besides, the lunch cart only comes around at 1 p.m. sharp. Has done for the past 2 weeks we've been on this train. Sable squinted at the man as he smirked at her. She could have sworn that as he bared his teeth, she saw 2 fangs at either side. So what are you going to do? We're only 2 weeks into our year-long journey to Rankor. You don't know how far you can run in this tin can. They're going to catch up with you soon enough. Sable looked to the side, trying to avoid the question. This was the first window Sable had come across on the train. Hiding in the luggage compartment, had no way to see outside. And she hadn't really had time to concentrate on her surroundings while running. She didn't know what planet they were passing, but it was beautiful. Past the energy field that surrounded the train, that shimmered of iridescent pinks and yellows. The massive planet just beyond them was a tan color. Its clouds were splodges of bright orange and dark pink. The ring that spanned around the planet was made of rock pieces that were all different shapes and sizes. Sable had to bring herself back to her reality. I'll be fine. Looking around again, with panic streaming through her veins, she had forgot that the strange man was still looking for her. Well, stranger, my name is Wilder, and I'm going to Rankor to start a new life of peace and hopefully happiness. How about you? She was only half listening, more focused on trying to wait for any opening she could, so she could make a run for it. Just when she thought she would have to stay in the seat a bit longer, the man in black got distracted by something behind him. Getting up, out of her seat, she went to pass the stranger that she had only just caught him, saying his name was Wilder. She wasn't trying to be rude, but she had no time to make friends right now. But as she went to pass him, he grabbed her arm gently. Look, I don't have time to chat right now. I'd appropriate it if you'd let me go. And so he did, going back casually to reading his book, but not without saying one last time, "Good luck. Whistle if you need any help." Confused at what he was implying, she knew she shouldn't be wasting this opportunity to run. Looking to check the man in black was still distracted, she finally took off down the rest of the carriage. She did it without even thinking, pursued her lips together. She whistled. The strange man who had started to lunge at her again stopped dead in his tracks, looking almost frightened. A look which faded almost instantaneously. She brought her right arm up to defend her face, but the blow never came. Lowering her arm, she looked around her to find the man in black was now crumpled in a ball at the far left wall. Light filled the carriage again, and it was like time stopped. You whistled. The man that now stood in front of her, like a ghost, she remembered was named Wilder. the same one she had met about a month ago. How did you... What? Never mind about that now. He grabbed her wrist gently and tugged her towards the door that led into the next carriage. We need to leave before someone discovers he's dead. Wilder had dragged her through 2 carriages before she stopped him. They were now in what looked like a kitchen area, and her eyes went straight to a knife block that sat on the counter behind where Wilder stood. He turned to see what she was looking at. Don't even think about it. I'm here to help you. Need I remind you, I just saved your life. He stood across from her, his hand raised, and finger pointed at her, like he was telling off a naughty child. I wasn't. They just caught my attention, that's all. Wilder looked at her, like he didn't believe a word she was saying. And to be fair to him, she couldn't blame him. They both leaned back on the counters, seeming to relax a little and to get their breaths back. You never answered my question. She looked up at him. This was the first time she was actually taking his image in. He was tall and slim, but he had some muscle to him. He wore slim black pants and a tan, round-necked t-shirt that was covered by a black leather jacket. His eyes were what stood out the most to Sable, though. They were the lightest blue, with little specks of green in them. Sable, my name's Sable, and I'm going to Rankor to reunite with my brother, Sky. Wilder gave her another wild smile, and once again, she caught sight of fangs. He'd crossed his arms over his chest. Wasn't so hard, was it? Sable rolled her eyes and started to walk again. That was a thank you for saving my life. Everyone was gathered in carriages that were purely made of glass. Sable worked out fairly quickly that these rooms were made for passengers. First look at Rankor. It was an exciting event, looking at your future paradise for the first time. Sable and Wilder has spent the rest of the months on the light train, getting to know each other. He wasn't as bad as she first thought. He was funny and insightful, and after months of spending every day with him, she started to feel something for him. They both stood in the middle of the carriage. People crammed in around them. They were all waiting for the final jump. There was something I didn't tell you. Sable turned to Wilder, not expecting him to look so sheepish. What is it? I don't think the strange man in black was after you. Sable's eyebrows furrowed, and her head tilted when she spoke. What do you mean? She didn't understand. Why was he bringing this up now? They had rid themselves of that man many months ago. He was after me. He was a shadow stalker. Sable laughed. Shadow stalkers were something of legend. They hunted down and killed an ancient race of vampires. But all those stories were now like Chinese whispers. Ha, good one. But his face was still stone cold. She'd never seen Wilder like this. But vampires don't exist. Wilder, stop being silly. We're supposed to be having a good moment. They do exist. I do exist. Sable, unconsciously, took a step away from him, just as the light train jumped, and everyone around them started to cheer. But they were only looking at each other. Confusion crossed her face when she came to a realization. The fangs, when you smile. Wait. But if he was after you all this time, then why did it seem like he was always following me? Wilder tried to walk towards her, but Sable just took another step back. Because it was me who was following you, which in turn meant that he was only technically following you. Her breath started to quicken, but she was suddenly distracted by the intense orange glow that was reflecting in Wilder's eyes. She hadn't even noticed that she hadn't been paying attention to anything but the man, if you could even call him that, in front of her. Turning quickly, the screams and sobbing of everyone around her filled her ears. It took Sable a few moments to adjust to what she was looking at. The planet in front of them, their new start, their new home, was entirely in flames. Orange flames, like veins, ran around the whole planet. They had been told that Rankor would be blooming with greens and purples, even from the outside. But now, all they saw were red and blacks. Sable didn't know when she had reached for Wilder's hand, but the only thing she could feel was his gentle squeezes to keep her grounded. Everything she had just found out was forgotten. Everyone around them were running around, crying and freaking out. Some were on their knees, heads in their hands, and their bodies shaking. Wilder would never get his life of freedom, and Sable would never see her twin again. The Sea Witch, clouds of ink and iron pressed against a leaden ocean. He found her waist deep in the salty waters, fingers trailing in swirling sea foam, gaze cast to the storm promised heavy on the horizon. Winds tasting of seaweed and salt brine danced in her hair, tangling through long obsidian strands and tossing them into thickening air. From the dunes he called to her, "Fair one." His hail drifted, swallowed by crashing surf. "I seek the Sea Witch." Only winds stirred in answer. Slowly, her head turned ever slightly to gaze over her shoulder. From great distance, and obscured beneath wild strands of hair, her dark eyes locked to his with piercing intensity that struck his core like lightning. With a hum that rippled across the waves, she spoke. A harrowing voice of 1,000 voices burrowed deep in his mind with a cold whisper of soft honey. "Is this what they call me these days?" Her lips curled, not to a smile, but something knowing, something old. "I've heard tales of your great power," he cried, stepping closer to the waves. "Please, I seek your help." She laughed darkly from the water. "Great power." She tasted the words, rolling them over her tongue like foam dissolving on the shore. Thunder rumbled on the horizon. In an instant, she was before him, her face inches from his. She floated above a boiling sea, robes billowing over tumultuous waves that crashed to the shore with surging hunger. Energy crackled in the air, charged with a deep pulse that rivaled the burning winds. Her hair spiraled in silken waves before her, caressing his face, and her eyes, deep and endless, burned with intensity that could sink the largest of ships. And did they call it great? She whispered, her voice of 1,000 voices quaking earth and thrumming his bones. When they led me to the pyre, the wind howled, tearing at his clothes, the salt stinging his eyes. Did they call it great? She continued, with increasing intensity. When they bound my wrists, when they fed me to the flames, he cowered before her as the sea swelled with hunger. I surely think not. She rose higher, straightening her form, bare feet brushing against churning waves. And yet, still, here they slither to me, mewling for party tricks. She looked down upon him with her chin raised. Tell me then, boy, she spat, laced with mockery. What is it that you seek? Gold? Fame? Power, perhaps? She tilted her head. A place among kings? She laughed, and sea spray pelted his skin. With a forearm, he shielded his face and cried, Please, I know not of your past, wise one. The winds raged around him. I seek a cure. My love is plagued with an illness that no medicine or healer can rid. I cannot bear to live without her. The winds slowed, the waters calmed, and slowly the sea witch descended. Her feet sunk in swirling sands beneath the surface, her dark hair to her sides. She eyed him thoughtfully, weighing his words. Cannot live without her, she echoed. Just one voice falling from her lips, in stark contrast to the thousands before. Quiet waves lapped around her calves. And this woman, she is your great love? He ignored hairs pricking on his neck as her gaze bore into him. She is everything to me. She studied him, robes billowing in soft winds. Yes, she said quietly. This I will do. Oh, thank you, he cried, falling to his knees in the water before her. She narrowed her eyes, looking down upon him. But there is always a price. Oh, yes, of course, he stammered, scrambling in his pockets. I have money. Her voice of 1,000 voices cracked like thunder. I do not deal in coins, foolish boy. The waves stirred hungrily around her feet before calming. Then, just one voice, brimming with disdain. Your debt lies with the universe. He stood up, trembling. He lifted his head to meet her fearsome gaze. For her, I will pay any price. Her lips twisted to a smile, sharp as glass. Such conviction, she murmured, almost to herself. How valiant. The softest chuckle emanated from her, like thunder rumbling on the horizon. She stepped forward, running a cold finger down his cheek. Very well, then. The deal is struck. Her eyes flicked to his. A life for a life. His breath caught in his throat. With one swift movement, her hand shot to grip the back of his neck, fingers digging into his flesh as she pulled him close. The water swelled around them, ravenous and eager. She laughed, pulling him under and out to sea as he sank deeper, deeper. He thought only of his love. He thought of her laughter, bright and warm, ringing across wildflower meadows around their cottage. He thought of her smile, crooked and beautiful, and the soft hole it hitched in his chest each time she bore it. He thought of the night he fell for her, watching her dance, weaving and spinning between other party-goers beneath the hanging wisteria. She'd smiled at him, waving to come join her. He'd held up his hands, sticking to the edges. He wasn't much for dancing. If he could go back, if he could only go back, he'd join her in a heartbeat. Later, that same night, she'd led him under moonlight, dragging him by the hand through the wood to her favorite place. Come on, she'd whispered, her laughter echoing in the night. I have to show you something. She brought him to a hidden gazebo on the lily pond, where she'd kissed him, stolen and bold. The sea kissed him now, stealing air from his lungs as she had. He thrashed against its unwelcome embrace as it ran icy fingers deep into his chest. He thought of her illness, how quickly she'd waned. The doctor's cold looks of detachment that made his blood boil. How they'd came and went, pricking her and bleeding her with leeches, giving all manner of vile treatments, until one day, one of them pulled him aside. She's too far gone for further treatment, he'd said solemnly. It would be best to sort affairs. His world had shattered then. Nothing mattered but her. In blind desperation for something, anything to keep her alive, he'd ignored the warnings that heeded the whispers and sought the spellweaver, the sea witch. As she pulled him into the depths, he could only hope that it was worth it. And the next story will be told right away. Please listen carefully. The Unwritten pages. 37 minutes after getting off the Route 19 bus, Bronwyn Miller realized her mistake. The familiar weight against her hip had disappeared because her leather-bound diary, which was her 3-year companion, wasn't there. Her fingers instinctively searched for the familiar worn cover, but discovered just the empty pocket of her oversized cardigan. She abruptly paused on the sidewalk while whispering, "No, no, no." mentally retracing her steps. The last places she visited before reaching the current sidewalk included the coffee shop and the bus stop, followed by the bus ride. She remembered having her diary at the bus stop with her, where she wrote during every wait because it had become her routine. The diary wasn't just any journal. The diary held all her unfiltered thoughts and secrets for 3 years, which she never expressed out loud. This was Bronwyn in her true form, without her deliberate public image. She started running back toward the bus stop, which was 6 blocks away. How likely was it for her diary to remain undisturbed on that bench in a city of 4 million, 0, as it turned out? An elderly woman sat on the bench and fed pigeons, while no leather-bound book appeared in sight. She knew that it was gone and felt a strange emptiness inside. Bronwyn reached the point of thinking the situation wasn't as terrible after 3 days passed. Someone had probably thrown it away. Bronwyn confirmed the transit authority had no records of anyone turning in her diary. Then came the notification. Bronwyn received a phone notification while she was working. A new email with the subject line, "I think this belongs to you?" A link represented the entire email, which lacked any other content. Upon clicking on the link, a basic blog titled "Pages Found" appeared on the web page, showing its first post created earlier that morning. Sometimes I wonder if anyone would notice if I disappeared. Mom would, obviously. But would she be sad or just inconvenienced? She spent so many years being disappointed in me that maybe it would be a relief. I think about disappearing a lot lately. Not dying, just vanishing. Starting over somewhere. No one knows the Bronwyn who always messes up. Her heart stopped. She'd written those words just last week, following her argument with her mother. The words matched exactly with her diary entries, which she had written by hand. As she scrolled through the page, she discovered 3 new entries, which contained her personal reflections written during the past month. The content hasn't reached extreme damage yet, but it's personal enough to make her feel exposed. At the bottom of the page was a comment box, and above it, a message. Bronwyn, if you're reading this, comment here. We need to talk about what you wrote on your remaining pages. She didn't sleep that night. She kept refreshing the blog compulsively while watching another entry show up. I had that dream again, where I'm giving my presentation and realize I'm completely naked. Dr. Winters says it's about vulnerability, about my fear of being exposed. How ironic is that? I pay someone $200 an hour to tell me I'm afraid of people seeing who I really am. Maybe she's right, though. I've spent so much energy crafting this competent, put-together version of myself. What would happen if people saw the real mess underneath? After hours of intense deliberation, Bronwyn typed the words, "This is private. Please stop posting my words. What do you want?" The response came within minutes. "Meet me tomorrow, 3 p.m. The bus stop where you left it." Bronwyn arrived at 2:45, her hands shaking. Before going to the meeting, she instructed Martha about her location and insisted that Martha call the authorities if she failed to report back by 3:30. At exactly 3 o'clock, her phone buzzed with another link. "I see you, Bronwyn. I've been watching you for a while now, even before I found your diary. You take this bus every Tuesday and Thursday. Look to your left, at the cafe across the street." Through the cafe window, she could see a figure holding up what appeared to be her diary. Her heart raced as she stood at the curb, until a gap in the traffic opened for her to cross. Bronwyn identified the figure sitting at the window table as she walked closer. "Eliza," she said in disbelief. Bronwyn's quiet marketing co-worker, Eliza Chen, sat down reading Bronwyn's diary. "Why?" was all Bronwyn could manage. Eliza pushed the diary toward her. "I found it. I opened it to find out whose it was. And once I realized it was yours, I should have just returned it. But then I read a bit more." She paused. "You wrote about feeling invisible, about no one really seeing you. So you tracked me down to publish my personal feelings on the internet?" Bronwyn hissed. Her face flushed as she confessed that she knew what she did was wrong. "But I recognized myself in your words. That feeling of being invisible, together with the necessity to hide behind a facade. My intention was to demonstrate that someone truly saw you and listened to what you said." "You thought what? That I'd be grateful?" Bronwyn snatched up her diary and held it close against her body. Eliza didn't know what thoughts she had and looked down. "I've taken the blog down. All the posts are deleted. Your words made me feel connected to you. My whole life, I've felt as though no one would even realize I was gone." "What you did was a violation," Bronwyn stated firmly. "You had no right." "I know. I'm sorry." Eliza spoke once more when Bronwyn began to walk away. "There's something else you should know. On page 43, you stated that you haven't encountered anyone who truly understood your feelings. That's not true, Bronwyn. You're not alone. That doesn't make what you did okay." "I know," Eliza said quietly. Bronwyn opened her diary to a blank page and started to write as she walked towards the bus stop. "Today, I encountered the person who discovered my diary. I discovered that it was Eliza from work who found my diary, rather than a creepy stranger. Eliza expressed her connection with me through the words I wrote. I remain angry, yet feel uneasy about how someone who barely existed to me understood me so well. Eliza mentioned my writing. You possess exceptional writing skills, she remarked. This memory took me back to my creative writing professor during my sophomore year. before I changed my major to business, because my father considered business more practical. These pages represent the sole place where I've openly revealed my desire to write a novel. A week later, Bronwyn found a sealed envelope on her desk with a handwritten note. I understand if you decide never to speak to me again. If you ever do, I must inform you that I have begun writing too. Putting the invisible parts on paper sometimes helps people understand them better. E. That evening, she flipped to page 43 of her diary. I question whether there exists another person who experiences this same sensation of ghosting through their own existence. At times, I feel I could yell in a packed space without anyone listening to me. On Monday, Bronwyn took her usual bus. Eliza occupied the back seat as she wrote notes into her little notebook. Their eyes met briefly before Eliza quickly looked down. Bronwyn took the vacant seat next to Eliza. I got your note. I was sincere when I apologized, Eliza answered, with a voice so faint it was nearly inaudible. What are you writing? Bronwyn asked. Just thoughts. Nothing as eloquent as your words. Your words reveal things that otherwise stay hidden, Eliza resumed. Reading your diary felt as though someone had expressed my inner emotions in words. Bronwyn acknowledged that her actions were still wrong, while showing less anger. I know. After discovering your diary, I started writing my thoughts down myself. The act of writing my thoughts down became helpful after I read your January entry. Writing feels like breathing underwater because you discover air in an environment meant to choke you. Yes, your diary entries reminded me of your desire to write a novel one day. This story is about all the characters you've been imagining since childhood. Bronwyn felt her face flush. Those were private dreams she'd almost forgotten. Eliza said softly, You know that you can do it. Your diary entries read like literature already. The bus came to a halt at its regular destination for Bronwyn. She decided to remain seated instead of exiting as the bus started moving. 6 months later, Bronwyn sat across from Eliza at their regular cafe table by the window, the same table where they'd had their confrontation. Bronwyn declared, I finished it, while pushing the manuscript toward Eliza across the table. All thanks to you. Eliza picked up the stack of papers, reading the title page. The Unwritten pages by Bronwyn Miller. Their initial coffee meetings, which started cautiously, developed into both a genuine friendship and a creative partnership. They gathered every Tuesday evening to write, with Bronwyn working on her novel, while Eliza focused on poetry. Bronwyn announced, after taking a sip of her coffee, that she planned to send her manuscript to the literary agent they met at the writer's workshop. Eliza remarked on the strange way things come together. The moment that brought us together happened because you left your diary on the bus stop. Bronwyn joined in with a playful grin, saying, You were such a creepy stalker. I prefer to think of myself as the universe's extremely flawed messenger. Eliza's expression grew serious. What drove me to give you back your diary was something you'd written about your dream to write a novel, but your fear that no one would want to hear your voice. Your diary entry revealed your dream of becoming an author, yet your fear held you back. I came to understand that I was reading the thoughts of an individual who possessed valuable insights, but doubted anyone would listen to them. That night, Bronwyn opened her original diary and flipped to the last page where she started writing a new entry following her confrontation with Eliza. She went back to read her thoughts from 6 months prior. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive her, but today I understood something. The experience of being truly seen can evoke simultaneous feelings of fear and awe. Beneath those words, Bronwyn added, "Today, I finished my novel." Sometimes, the worst moments in our lives become doorways to the best ones. Sometimes, a stranger becomes the friend who helps you find your voice. And sometimes, being seen is exactly what you needed all along. She shut the diary softly because she was no longer fearful of its contents or the consequences of someone reading them. The words had served their purpose. They had guided her home to herself. Just when you think all the weird stuff has been told, the next story will make you think again. Shadow, Hounds. Endless void out the window. You can hardly tell whether there is some kind of space whizzing past, or trees, or the gullet of some fantastically huge animal. Being able to see the stars helps, but the roof of the car keeps getting in the way. The landscape keeps shifting from open to covered. You think you remember Mom saying you would be driving through some forest soon. You can't sleep. Days in the car, and everything is stiff and sore. A few more hours, they say, like they mean it. I mean, you knew it would be a long trip. Cross country is a long way to go. But staring out a small window at passing scenery that largely doesn't change from state to state is mind-numbingly boring. A flicker in the corner of your eye, but you know better than to turn your head. You might be tired, 3/4 asleep, but you know you aren't seeing things. Your heart speeds up. Your breaths quicken. You strain your peripheral vision to get a better idea of what is running alongside the car. Again, always at night, especially in the darkest places. A nightmare of sleek muscles, open, panting jaws, and long legs ending in what looks like razor-sharp claws, all ebony black, invisible if you looked at it dead on. No discerning features in the blackness. Nothing you could pinpoint to show someone else the demon dogs running next to the car. And yes, dogs. Sometimes it was just one. And how you know it's the same one all the time, you'll never be able to tell. Other times, there are several. Considering their color and tendency to sort of bleed or ooze over each other, It's impossible to tell exactly how many there are at times. They run constantly beside the car, seeming to brush up against it at times. They don't make any noise. You can't tell if they are physical things, though the fact no one else sees them, and they disappear in any light, says something. Their slavering jaws drip, though it doesn't smear on the glass, nor does their breath fog the windows. They just are. Nothing about them really screams menace, despite how they look. They don't pay attention to the occupants of the car much, don't seem to notice when you try to avoid their eyes. They run, eyes forward, coursing into the night with you. Suddenly, you see one dart off the road into the darker shadows under the trees. The others gather closer to the car, seeming to close ranks, and become more alert as they run. You strain your eyes in the darkness, trying to pierce the void of the deepest shadows. What would they be running after? Some kind of prey? Some kind of threat? And a threat to whom? You or them? You slow your breathing as much as you can. Try to tune out the hush of the tires and the air conditioner. You try not to think about smothering your mother for that little snore cough she's doing. She really can't help it. It's just covering up. Was that a noise? A crunch scream in the distance? Damn it, there are too many smaller noises around, covering anything up. You start to pant and sweat, worried about what you did or didn't hear. You keep glancing at the rest of the pack, trying to read their body language. Is that a snarl? Is that one staring off into the woods or ahead of the car? Are they moving closer, more carefully, or picking up speed again and relaxing? An interminable amount of time later, the other shadow hound suddenly bounds out of the blackness ahead, turning sharply to take up his place in the pack again. Oh, you scan him, looking for any sign of what happened. Then you laugh at yourself, because how can you tell if a shadow is bleeding or hurt? You relax and start to drift off, finally lulled by the swaying of the car and the shushing of the tires. Your eyes close and you sleep. Weightlessness, briefly, then pain as you slam into the seats in front of you. Breathlessness as your body adjusts from being asleep to awake so abruptly. You scramble upright, or as upright as you can get, trying to get your bearings. The car is twisted around, now facing the woods across from where you were traveling. You can see skid marks, and the front of the car is all banged up, like you hit something. But there's nothing in the road, nothing in front of the vehicle. You check on your parents. They're fine, but look like they got knocked out during the crash. They are both bleeding a bit, but nothing seems serious. You try to gently wake them, but don't want to accidentally hurt them. You look around for your phone, remembering you need to call for help. As soon as your fingers touch it on the floorboard, you feel a growl in your chest. Then, you hear the deep grumbling from outside the car. Snapping upright, you look frantically around in front of the car, looking for whatever made that malicious sound. You see nothing until you catch a flicker in the corner of your eye. With dread, you make yourself focus on your peripheral vision, scared to see what is making the sound. It's big. You can almost catch glimpses of scales as it moves, gliding around the light. This one, whatever it is, does seem to have mass. You can see the trees shifting and swaying, like there is a breeze blowing through them, but only as it passes. The others are still as stone. You check quickly around and don't see any of the shadow hounds. Were they scouting for this thing, leading it to you somehow? Did this thing kill them all? Or did they run when it attacked your car? Because you're fairly certain this is what caused the collision. Impossible to tell. You couldn't even tell whether they acknowledged your presence or not on the road, other than as an object to race, a sound, a whistle that turns into a high-pitched giggle, a howl and shriek, all in one. It repeats around the little clearing, growing louder and more melodic, until it stops. Suddenly, you see the hounds lunging and leaping. Trying to keep track of the movement is impossible. You can only catch tiny fragments of glimpses from the corners of your eyes, but you can hear the yips and snarls, the sound of impact from the tussle. Eventually, there is a deeper, pain-filled snarl that rends the air, then crashing and banging through the trees as the high-pitched howl shriek begins again. This time, sounding triumphant. You sit there, breathing slowly as you strain to listen. A huff at the window, a brush of almost fur against that side of the car. You slide your eyes that way to see as much as you can out of the corner. The biggest hound, the one you consider the leader of the pack, stares back at you and slowly blinks. He nods and you nod back, grateful for the protection. Your parents start to stir and moan, and you remember your phone. You look down to dial 911 and glance back around you as you start to talk to the operator. You can see the pack out there, taking up a defensive perimeter. You sigh and relax, knowing you are safe from any more dangerous shadows. The Alpha stands to the side, taking up an outer perimeter watch. He looks back at the car, knowing that soon it will be time to bond with his mage. She's almost ready. The attack tonight was proof of that. But she is strong. She did not panic, did not scream. She trusted them. He knows they will have a strong bond. He grins fiercely, showing all of his teeth. Yes, they will work nicely together. The above story is ended. Let's listen to the next story. Columbine. Every night, the fog killed scores of us. The city of Metro needed a hero to protect them. And so I rose up and became the super-powered woman to save them all. I am Maverick, named for the city's most usually seen creature of flight. My civilian identity is Cora Neely. When I took up the mantle of the heroic Maverick, I left behind my former mundane life as a citizen to combat crime in all its insidious forms. I usually triumphed, earning the keys to the city. I met more than I expected when I encountered someone called Columbine. Columbine was my arch foe, a foe of extraordinary caliber, if one were afraid of clowns. She was a commedia dell'arte-themed supervillain whose motive was to destroy the city of Metro, weaponizing lethal gas in the form of mist in our city every night that killed many inhabitants. Her motive was to eradicate Handcroft Laboratories, an organization responsible for medicine and chemicals vital to Metro's health and progress. One day, I discovered a formidable truth when we battled amid the towering skyscrapers of Metro. I was having a midnight flight when she arrived, indigo-haired with matching lipstick, taunting me with maniacal laughter. Up until this moment, I had yet to meet someone so unhinged and so glaringly dangerous. We would grow close in later years, but that night, the fight was for mutual detest as much as it was about survival. "The birdie's a long way from her nest," she said in a sing-songy voice. Columbine's face was contorted into a grimacing leer behind her clown half-mask. "Metro is mine to protect," I told her. "I hail from the faraway citadel of Celestion, where we have no tolerance for common criminals such as yourself. I dare you to fly, to fight. Come and stop me," she said, firing bullets at me. My wings deflected her shots. I swooped into the air with metallic wings, shedding my trench coat. Once I reached her level, on the rooftop where she stood, I lurched forward, holding her by the neck. She pivoted, slashing at me with an intricate dagger. I dodged the blows, my wings slicing through the air. Columbine freed herself from my wrenching grasp, and we continued our battle, parrying back and forth in a vicious dance of death. She danced a vile ballet throughout the rooftops, acrobatically dodging all of the blades that I slung at her. She stepped forward and cradled my jaw, speaking in a hushed tone. "Look how you're all alone in life, waiting for even more recognition for gift-wrapped victories that you never deserved," she said. "Join me. This wretched city could be ours if you let it." I wrestled myself away, shaking my head at her attempt to seduce me into defeat with her carefully chosen words. Columbine knew my weakness and wasn't afraid to use it against me. "You're wicked scum," I spat out. "Then die alone," she said. Was it true that she was truly insane? "Eeny, meeny, miny, mo," she whispered, bellowing the last word while firing more bullets at me from a vintage hand rifle. I deflected again and surged towards her, slicing her neck with my razor-sharp wing. She coughed, stumbling downward to the street below, feeling something akin to pity that I could not name. I descended and caught her, and we plummeted to the street. Columbine clutched at my collar. I leaned closer. With a trembling hang, she removed her mask to reveal patterns of acid lesions trailing from her forehead to her right jaw. There's something that you should know about Handcroft Labs. They're not the city's saving grace. They held me captive since infancy and experimented on me. They took away the closest thing I had to a father figure, disfigured my face. I'm the villain I am because of Handcroft. Stay far away. I was stunned. The same place that was about to provide an antidote to Columbine's venomous fog was what twisted her into something possibly past saving. Was she right? Unable to shake her words from my head, I flew to the nearest hospital, dropped her at the door, and set out to investigate her claims for myself. Columbine's civilian identity was that of a theatrical drama teacher. One afternoon, I visited her at her school and pleaded with her to cease the toxic nightly mist. She relented with downcast eyes. "What are you really here for?" she asked. "You," I said softly. "I want to make sure that you're all right after. Well, let's forget the homicidal pleasantries. I found out that you're right about Handcroft. Turns out that they're up to more harmful things than just university science projects. So, you believe me?" asked Columbine. "We'll see, but it's a start," I said. "Cora, listen to me. When this thing," she gestured to her mask, "this Columbine thing takes over, I can't control." "No worries," I said, trying to understand her in some way. "This city I used to put on a spectacle, pits us against each other. It's outside both of our control." As time went on, we continued our game of fighting and alternately reconciling, with no conclusive winner every time. Sometimes I let her get away. Other times, she purposely ceased to slay me. She was right about Handcroft, so we joined forces to end their schemes forever. Having succeeded, we became more than hero and villain. We were connected by a common goal. Months later, we grew closer, me and Columbine. At one time, I woke up and got out of bed to find that she wasn't in my room anymore. There was a note. "Dear Cora, I can't keep up this charade anymore. I have to go after an enemy of yours on my own. I'm sorry. Columbine Claude XOXO." I wept for hours at losing someone I had fought alongside to save our city. When my tears ceased to fall, there was one thing I knew for certain: that I would hunt Columbine down from every corner of the earth until I found her. My search would continue. The next story will begin now. Little Men, January 1985. Somewhere over the You were 1,000 miles into the Atlantic when the aircraft rutted violently against your controls. Barely a shiver in the airframe at first, like a deep sigh running through the metal bones of the 777, then unloading at once. You felt it beneath your hands, fingers curled around the yoke, a pulse of tension radiating from your own chest. And you thought that perhaps the bottom of the ocean was where you belonged. There was a darkness there, a pressure so strong it would stop your body from behaving like a biological machine and turn it into a mangled physics experiment. The same coexisted inside you, where your heart was splintered, half of it belonging to your mother and half of it to Cammy. A darkness you couldn't smooth away. Somewhere back there, among the rows of passengers dozing, sighing, and flipping through their lives, he was sitting. Your father, a man you'd never truly seen. Not beyond the stories your mother whispered in moments of quiet fury. A man who had given you nothing but a sickness that curled in your gut when you remembered where you came from. The man whose rage marked you. You didn't know his seat number, didn't want to know. The knowledge that he existed in your cabin, breathing your air, was enough to make a grown man sick. And you thought you knew that if he walked up to the cockpit door, if he knocked, if he leaned in with some pathetic excuse or a father's smirk, you would open the door and wrap your hands around his throat. You'd feel his pulse flutter against your fingers, fragile and real, and you would squeeze. You let autopilot hold the course. Let the gentle hum of the engines seep into your bones, pretending for a moment you were something better than what he left behind. A clean slate, but there was always a stain, that borrowed darkness, his gift to you. No matter how high you flew, you couldn't outrun it. And then she drifted into your mind, the girl with eyes like sky break, a voice like gentle rain, the girl you had never touched, could never touch, because she was flawless in ways you would never be. She'd smile at you with that easy grace, unaware of the shadows clawing inside you, oblivious to the storm you kept locked behind your ribs. You thought of her seeing you for what you were, the quiet, steady pilot with a monster curled around his heart. If she knew, if she saw even a hint of that darkness, she would recoil. She'd wish you out of the sky, wish your plane would disappear into the ocean without a trace. And maybe she'd be right. The horizon stretched before you, a line you couldn't cross, a future you didn't deserve. You swallowed the air in shallow breaths, felt the press of your father's existence. Outside, the clouds thickened, gray swirling into black, and the gentle tremor of turbulence returned. The seatbelt sign blinked on. You flicked the intercom switch, cleared your throat. Ladies and gentlemen, we're passing through some rough air. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. Your father's life was in your hands. All their lives were. You looked at the yoke, the screens, the clouds ahead, and wondered just how far you could fall before the darkness took over. Why was he still alive? How did he deserve to be alive? On what grounds exactly? You could push the controls forward, put the nose into a dive, select full thrust, increase bank angle to 45 degrees, and stall the plane. Keep putting in fatal commands while your FO tries to right the plane until the dual input sound warning starts to ring out through the cockpit. You squeezed your eyes shut just for a moment. The stick trembled beneath your fingers, the aircraft groaning. You loved this plane, and like in any other reciprocal relationship, it not only loved you back, but supported your every decision. You could do it. A simple motion, a nudge of the yoke, the push of a throttle, and gravity would take over. You opened your eyes. Outside, the storm coiled tighter, wind shear slipping along the fuselage. The intercom crackled as your first officer, blissfully unaware of the war inside you, mumbled something about altitude adjustments. You barely heard him. A breath, another. Then the master caution blared. A harsh, shrieking thing. Your FO jerked upright. Jesus, what? Your hands moved, instincts taking over before your mind could finish what it started. The turbulence sharpened. Wind punched the aircraft broadside. The nose dipped. Pitch up, pitch up, you corrected without thinking. Muscle memory overriding the dark pull at the edge of your mind. The aircraft stabilized, shuddering in the air, and for a moment, all was still. Your FO exhaled, dragging a hand down his face. That was a bad one. You okay? You nodded, throat dry. Yeah, you said, because it wasn't your hands that tried to kill them. It was the storm. At least, that was the lie you would tell yourself. Something in you had hesitated, had listened to the alarms, had heard the raw panic in your FO's voice, had responded like the pilot they had trained you to be. Why? Why had you stopped? Captain, you forced your expression into something normal, professional. The storm was beginning to ease, the worst of it passing. We'll be clear in a few minutes, you said. Keep an eye on the readings. He nodded, rubbing his temples. Didn't think we'd get rocked that hard. Thought for a second we were gonna. He shook his head. Never mind. You didn't respond. Instead, you reached for the intercom. Your voice was calm, steady. Everything it should be. Ladies and gentlemen, the turbulence is subsiding. We'll have a smooth ride the rest of the way. Thank you for your patience. You let go of the button. The lie sat heavy in your mouth because the storm wasn't over. It had only just begun. We think it's over, but in fact, it's just begun. The next story will thrill you in a completely different way. There's a grizzly on the plane. People are shuffling down the aisle of the plane, scooting one step at a time, shoving things in the overhead compartment, elbowing and kneeing each other as they throw themselves down into their seats. The flight attendants are smiling brightly and saying, "Good morning, good morning, good morning," to each passenger in turn as they enter the plane. The captain is there with them. I take a good look at him. I know this guy. Kind of a wimp. That's why I knew this was the right flight. I think his name is Cameron. When I press the barrel of this gun against his head, he'll do anything I say. One man with a gun can do anything. I give him a little wink. I'll see you soon. It's easy to get around airport security when you work at an airport. This is gonna be my final flight. And the final flight for all these people too. I'm not gonna shoot them all. Maybe just a few. Might as well. But most of them are going out with a real bang. Not me though. Gonna shoot myself right before we crash. My seat is 32F. So here we go. Almost there. And I stop. I see it. But I can't. There. There's... What? No. Yes. There's a goddamn grizzly bear sitting in a seat. Buckled in. A woman sitting next to him is feeding him pink bits of something from a bowl. The bear is huge, but somehow fits in the seat, like it was custom made. It's sitting straight up in the seat, buckled in. How? What? The woman caught me staring. Ooh, sorry. He doesn't like to be stared at. The bear is staring at me with deep brown eyes, dark brown fur, huge paws, long claws. It starts snorting and moaning, and I shake my head and keep walking to my seat. I look around, and everyone else seems to be fine with this. How did I not see the bear walk onto the plane? Why is no one else freaking out about this? I find 32F, and I look back to the bear, who's a few rows ahead. The bear turns its head and looks back at me. I turn my head away and drop down into my seat. The bear turned around, and the woman next to it gave it another morsel. A man sits down next to me and says, "Hello there. Do you see that?" I said. "Oh yeah, we've got a full plane today. That's good luck, you know." "No, not that. I point. "What?" "The bear," I said, so loud that a few people turned around and looked at me. "Oh yeah, he's a cute guy, isn't he?" "That's insane," I tried whispering, but I know everyone heard me. Shouldn't be a problem. The guy sits down and starts looking at his phone. Just like that. I look around and see others doing the same. I see people reading books, eating snacks, whatever. Nobody is freaking out over the goddamn grizzly bear sitting in 25B. "Sir?" "I'll need to place your bag in the overhead compartment," says a flight attendant. "No, this is my carry-on. My gun is in here. Sorry, sir, but new safety procedures say we need all bags placed in the overhead bin for takeoff. Once we reach cruising altitude, you can get your bag." She reaches over to take my bag from my lap, but I hold on to it. "Sir, please," she says with a firm pull. I pull back. She's not letting go. We're having a small tug of war over my neighbor's lap. "Let her have the bag, just doing her job," says my nonchalant neighbor. I let go, and she opened the compartment over my seat. "Oh, we're all full here. Let's see." She's opening compartments down the line, away from me. "Here we are. Sir, I'm placing your bag right here, right above the bear." How did the bear get on here? How did it fit on the plane? Why does the bear have an aisle seat? Why is there a bear on the plane? Why is no one freaking out? She shuts the compartment and walks towards the front of the plane. "We'll be taking off soon. You look nervous, son. Is this your first flight?" asks the man next to me. "No, I've flown lots of times." This was supposed to be the last time. The attendants are doing their usual pre-flight routine of instructing people how to put their seatbelts together and how to put on the emergency oxygen masks. I guess the bear doesn't need any help. Its caretaker is sitting right next to it. The seatbelt fits, so I guess they have a special bear mask too. Wouldn't want the wild animal to get hurt, now would we? Focus. It's just an animal, after all. It'll be the first thing I shoot. I've got a machine gun, so I'll just spray it with a dozen bullets or so. That should keep the rest of the idiots in their seats. Then I'm back in charge. Bear looks calm anyway. Shouldn't be hard. Today is my day. Nothing is going to change this. The pilot tells us on the overhead that we're ready for takeoff. The bear made a low growl, and the woman next to it scratched behind his ears, soothing it. The plane starts moving down the runway. Normally, this part of flying doesn't bother me, but today, I'm gripping my armrests. The acceleration picks up, and the plane's engines get louder. I'm staring at the back of the bear's head, which is completely still, like some damn taxidermy project that had its own ticket. The wheels of the plane leave the ground, and we are in the air. I'm in a window seat, so I turn my head to look out, hoping it will calm me down, knowing that all is going according to plan, except for the bear. All I have to do is get the bag, kill the bear, shoot that bitch that brought him on here too. Maybe a few more people, just for fun. Then up to the cockpit with a hostage on the bad end of the barrel to make my way in. I'll tell the captain that we're making an unexpected detour right into the middle of the nearest city. Right before we crash, I'll shoot myself. We have to wait before we reach cruising altitude. Then I can move about freely. Then we'll have about 30 to 40 minutes before we get close to the nearest big city. Enough time to feel like God before dying. I'm watching through the window, still gripping the armrests. "Looks like you need a drink of water," says the man next to me. I realize my forehead is covered with sweat. "Yeah, I guess I could," I say, wiping my forehead. I look back and see that the goddamn bear is reclining in its seat. Person behind it doesn't seem to mind. Just then, the bear turned around and looked at me. I turned back to the window. Even over the sound of the plane's engines, I can hear the bear smacking its lips, followed by another low rumbling growl, almost like it's annoyed by me. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to fuck up your day. I must have gotten lost in the window." As the next time I looked up, the snack cart was being pushed down the aisle by an attendant. What's the bear gonna have? A cookie? Water? Or Coke? When that cart gets behind me, I'm gonna get up and get over there and grab my bag. I'll take a can of Coke when she gets here. Now she's asking the woman next to the bear if she'll have anything. The woman takes a cookie and a cup of water. The bear got nothing. I guess it's full. Come on, hurry up. She's taking her sweet time, pushing that cart down the aisle. My jaw is clenched tight, like a bear trap. All right, here she is. Finally. "Would you like anything, sir?" she asks the man next to me. "Yes, a water for myself and for my friend here." "No, thank you. I'll have a Coke." "Oh, nonsense. You sweating like that? You need a water. 2 waters, please." The woman poured 2 waters, and I gulped mine down in one drink before she even left. "Would you like another?" she asks. "No, I want a Coke." She hands me the red can, and I chug half of it. The sugar and caffeine hit my brain like ice water. I put the can down, and the bear is staring at me again. The attendant pushes the cart down to the row behind us. It's time now. The bear is still looking back at me. I'll give it a minute, finish my drink. "You know, I had a bear like that when I was younger," said the man next to me. "What?" "Oh yeah, his name was Popper. Great bear. You ever had a bear?" "No, I fucking haven't. I'm gonna kill this son of a bitch too." Right after the bear. The bear is still staring at me. And now I'm staring back. I finish my can of Coke and crunch it in my hand. I'm in control here. It's time. Now. Right now. Let's go. I unbuckle my seatbelt and stumble across my neighbor's knees, almost falling into the opposite row. A lot of people notice and are now watching me, but the bear is now looking straight ahead, unaware of me. I think it's cool. Just a few steps, open the compartment, and start blasting. This is my day, and nothing is going to screw it up. The aisle seems a mile long, and it's taking all my willpower to pick up my feet for every step. I make it to the compartment, the bear sitting right next to me. I reach up to open the hatch and, "Excuse me," says the woman with the bear. Could you hand me my bag? It's in there. I need something from it. Is it for the bear? I ask. I didn't mean to, but it slipped. No, it's just a book for me to read. I can smell the bear. Deep pine woods. Its huge paw is brushing against my leg. It's just the fur touching me, but I see the long claws. I open the compartment, and there's my bag, right in front of hers. One quick draw, and I could shoot the bear. Just unload the whole fucking clip into him and forget the rest. Make my way to the cockpit, and the bear's huge paw falls from the armrest, and the claws scrape my leg. I fall back into someone's lap, with my heart in my throat. I look at the bear, and it's still in its seat, eyes closed, breathing deep. That low rumble, which is louder than the engines. Oh, sorry about that. He's just sleeping. Sir, excuse me, says the flight attendant with the cart. She's finished handing out cookies and Cokes, and now wants to go back to the front. With the look on her face, I believe she would run me over if she could. She grabbed the lady's bag and handed it to her and closed the compartment. I need something out of there, I say. Yes, sir. She stops and nearly falls over her cart as the plane has hit sudden turbulence. I bump into the person sitting behind me, opposite the compartment. Sir, get back to your seat. I just need... Sir, you need to get back to your seat. The plane bumps and shakes, and now the bear is awake and growling. The woman hands him some pink bit out of a container, which I can now see is fish. Salmon. The bear snacks and smacks, but still makes that growling sound, making an awful mixture of sounds. The attendant has pulled the cart backwards down the aisle, leaving me an open path to my seat. The bear looks at me with salmon hanging from its jaws, so I crawl and stumble back to my seat. Buckle up. It's a bumpy ride, says the idiot sitting next to me. I'm going to kill the bear, then him, then the attendant, then the woman. I buckle my belt, and still my head slams into the window. People are screaming, kids are crying, the plane is bumping and rattling. The captain's voice comes over the speaker, saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain in your seats. We are experiencing extreme turbulence." The bear is growling and tossing in its seat. The woman tries to feed it more salmon, but the bear isn't having it. He swats away her hand with a huge paw, and the pink salmon goes flying across the plane. The bear tosses and turns and rumbles harder than the plane and breaks free. The goddamn thing has gotten out of its chair. I have to go now. I unbuckle my seatbelt, and the moron next to me says, "You don't want to do that, son." I punch him in the mouth. just so I know I got him one good time before this is over. I'll take this bear down with the rest of them. I brace myself against the seats, and I take small steps with firm feet and make my way to the compartment. The bear is squeezed in the aisle on all fours, bouncing off the seats, but mostly steady, facing away from me. Good. Almost there. I grab the seat it used to sit in, and I open the compartment. I unzip my bag, and I see the machine gun. It's already loaded. All I have to do is grab it and open fire. Never killed an animal before. It's kinda like a bonus. The plane has settled. No more turbulence. Everything is still and smooth, and I hear the bear make a noise. I turn to see it facing me. On all fours, it's half as tall as me. Oh my, thank you. Please, help him to his seat, says the woman. He just loses his temper when there's turbulence. I look back to the bear, who's looking at me with deep brown eyes. Just take his paw and help him to his seat. I'd help you, but I hurt my ankle in all the trouble. Just take his paw. I don't know why, but I stick out my hand. The bear puts its paw out and softly lights on my palm. It makes some kind of noise that I can't figure out if it's aggressive or friendly. I slowly back up, keeping my eyes on the bear as it walks towards its seat. The bear sits down, and she buckles him in, and the whole plane starts clapping. They're saying, "Aw," and "how sweet," and whatever else. Are you fucking kidding me? The captain's voice over the speaker says, "Ladies and gentlemen, we seem to be in the clear now, but I am asking that you remain in your seats for the remainder of the flight. Thank you." Sir, that goddamn attendant again. She appeared like a fucking ghost. Please return to your seat. I'm so goddamn flabbergasted. I don't know what to do. Just whatever. I shut the compartment. I take my seat. The guy sitting next to me is holding his mouth, but pulls his hand down to say, "Good job back there. I forgive you for socking me. We all get a little emotional sometimes under pressure. It takes a brave man to do what you did, risking yourself for that poor animal. I'm sure he appreciates you." I don't know what to say to that. I look out the window and see the big city, so small way down below us. I watch as clouds fill the window and blot out the city with pure white. I look back at the bear, who's looking back at me. I stayed in my seat for the rest of the flight, grabbed my bag, and deboarded the plane. Not one bullet fired. The above story ends, but never stops. Here is another story that will not disappoint you. Inflight. Meal. Leo was not a fan of flying. Not like this. Sitting quietly with strangers in an enclosed space, like he was back in the classroom. That was one of his ideas of hell. He had many ideas of hell. and very few of heaven. He made sure her was one of the first passengers on the plane. He took his seat with no fuss and no nonsense, and then did his best to weather the storm of humanity around him. He tried the breathing technique his therapist had taught him, and he also tried zoning out. Neither worked. A voice in his head was screaming at him to leave. Anything was better than this. Screw the deal. Just get off the plane and go home. Maybe Jimmy was right. They should buy the Vibe Bar, change its name to something far cooler, and live the simple life. Leo's Bar. Thoughts of the bar helped calm him for a little while, but then he realized that his ambition was taking the concept to places that were far from simple. Leo sighed. Jimmy would make that bar work. He really would. But then Leo would come along, interfere, and fuck it up. And the worst of it was that Jimmy would smile sweetly and let him ruin everything. Sometimes Leo wondered whether he wasn't wired right, that maybe he'd been dropped on his head as a baby, or his mother had had a secret drug habit. Leo was never settled or content. Nothing was ever good enough. Or if it seemed like it was, it soon turned into the brown stuff and stunk to high heaven, meaning Leo had to move onto pastures new before the shit stuck to him, and he was the one stinking the place up. Somehow, he lost himself somewhere in his thoughts and self-absorption, thankful of the respite. Barely taking in the safety briefing, he came to himself as the plane accelerated down the runway, and he was pressed down into his seat as they traveled skyward. He enjoyed this bit, but it also terrified him. There was nothing natural about being propelled into the sky. He tried not to consider the landing. It was the landing that could kill you. Hit the ground hard enough, and it was all over. He blew out a breath and closed his eyes. He kept them closed as he mulled the deal. This was the big time. Once he'd done this deal, he'd be a different animal, and the Vibe Bar would be far beneath him. He was a player now. Things were on the change, and people better take note. They would have to take note. He'd make sure of it. "Drink, sir?" The question fazed him, but he quickly returned to himself, ordering a bourbon, then making it a double. As he poured his drink into the crappy plastic cup, he tuned into the interaction between the air hostess and the passenger sat next to him. The voice was what caught his attention. There was no mistaking the owner of that voice. If Leo were to turn and gawp at the woman next to him, he knew that he would find her attractive. Maybe too attractive. Leo's measure of too attractive was not misogynistic. He applied the same rule to man and beast alike. Beautiful people could be really up themselves and manage to be a pain in the ass at the same time. Leo had experienced this and had no time for it. Mostly, he had no time for it. There was always room for exceptions, and she turned out to be yet another of the exceptions. "Hey," he said, as he turned to greet her. "I'm Leo." She smiled and nodded. "I'm Grace. Nice name," he told her. And for once, he thought he might mean it. There followed a silence that could have been awkward, but instead was filled with anticipation, or at least was as far as Leo was concerned. "I don't usually," he began, but trailed off as both the words and the sentiment felt off-kilter. "I bet that's what you say to all the girls you sit next to on a plane," she said, with a hint of humor in her voice. That voice. There was something cathartic about it. Not only that, her very presence was doing something to him. Some things. He was regressing. A young boy around the babysitter. A pretender to a throne he never thought he would ever sit on. His body was fizzing, and his brain was spinning so that he couldn't think straight. "So, Leo," she said, "what is it that you do?" That last word was heavy with meaning, but he could not discern it. "I'm a businessman," he replied. "The problem with the dog-eat-dog world of business is you have to piss a few people to get anywhere. Am I right?" She was smiling. He nodded. "Seemed impossible not to. Trick is not to piss the wrong people off," she said in a quieter tone. Leo paused for a moment, his face a question. It were almost as though she knew something that he didn't. But how could she? She was just a stranger on a plane, and this was small talk to pass the time as they lingered in the limbo of this uncomfortable travel. Then she casually placed her hand on his thigh, and everything took a sharp right turn. "I find flying so dull." Now she was barely whispering. "Don't you?" "Not so much so now," Leo replied. Grace grinned at him. There was something overtly sexy about that grin. It sent a thrill up Leo's spine. The sensation was heightened as Grace's hand stroked higher up his thigh, and he found himself wanting more, wanting so much more. "Your business?" she asked, her voice stroking the back of his neck in time with her hand on his thigh. "Is it dangerous?" "Very." His own voice felt thick and stilted. He was inexplicably drowsy, but his senses felt heightened. Her touch was electrifying him. "I walk on the wild side." He wasn't sure why he'd told her that. Wild side? They weren't even his own worlds. "I knew it!" she said excitedly, her hand going all the way up his inner thigh and resting exactly where he had hoped it might. "You're a very naughty man, aren't you?" Naughty? Was he? If anyone else had asked him this question, he'd have put them in their place. But with her, it was different. It was like she was royalty, a bona fide princess, the sort you couldn't refuse. And he wasn't going to refuse her when she was working magic on him with that hand of hers. couldn't react badly with where her hand was right now. I have been known to be naughty. He struggled to say the words as an involuntary gasp threatened to intermingle with them. In that case, I think you better ask for a blanket. Grace gave him a playful squeeze. She was leaning in towards Leo now. He felt her breath on his earlobe and neck. Sure, he said, and duly obliged. That's better, purred Grace as she spread the blanket over Leo. The armrest was up and out of the way now. This business of yours, it's criminal, isn't it? Can be, Leo replied, as Grace moved closer to him and nuzzled his neck, sending waves of pleasure through him. The anticipation was building, and he was reeling from this turn of events. He was no longer enduring a painful flight. He was enjoying a mile-high tryst. Oh, look, you're bleeding. Her words took too long to sink in. He responded instead to her hand, leaving him and taking his wrist instead. There was a smear of blood, but he hadn't noticed any pain or act that could have caused the slight wound. Here, let me. He watched as she lapped at the bloodied skin on his wrist. However slow he'd been with what she'd been saying, his body responded quickly and fully to this. She was sending waves of pleasure through him, and his imagination was going to the best of places, even before she began kissing and then sucking at his flesh. He'd never known pleasure like it, never realized how sensitive his wrists were. They sat like that for a while, Grace lapping and kissing him as he looked on, Leo doing his best to stifle his moans and hold himself back. The way he was responding to her, it was like his first time, but he had decades of experience to bring to the party. Something so simple as kissing his wrist. Who knew? And if she could have this effect on him as she did this, what further pleasures awaited? He was disappointed when she stopped, resisting the urge to ask her not to cease, putting a hold on begging her for more. Instead, he went for small talk to disguise his blatant need for her. What do you do, Grace? He asked, as she slipped her arm around him and drew closer to him. Her hand was wrapped around him now. It felt so good. He barely registered her having undone his belt and trousers, losing his touch, drowning out the dissenting thoughts, going with it. He'd seen plenty of action before today, but not like this, not with a woman like Grace. And she was doing things to him that he didn't know were possible. He wanted her more than any woman he'd ever met, wanted to give himself over to the pleasure he knew she could so readily bestow. Her voice, her presence, it had spoken of this, drawn him in. Now she was fulfilling the promise that was made as soon as they'd taken their seats on this flight. A chance encounter that was blowing his mind to pieces. as she stroked him and pleasured him. She answered his question with that voice of hers. I deal with the naughty boys. I eliminate risks, she breathed into his ear. And you've been a very naughty boy. Fran Johnstone is not happy with you going behind his back with this deal of yours. His eyes widened in shock, but he barely had time to let the words sink in before her teeth sank into his neck. His back arched, and he wanted to protest, to struggle, but it was already too late for that. Too late for Leo. Grace took her time and enjoyed her in-flight well. These business trips were very lucrative for an assassin with her skills and proclivities. Less so for loose cannons like Leo. The midnight ride. It was a dark night, one of those without any stars to look at, and a dark moon. Not even the universe was interested in what was about to happen. There was no spotlight over me, nor a guiding light to help me escape. As I ran to my car, one of my heels broke, and I twisted my ankle. I took out the shoes and limped to the door while looking for the keys in my purse. Damn big fancy bags. This whole scenario would have been much easier with jeans and sneakers. But that was not something I could change, and dreaming about better times would not help me either. My hands were trembling, and I was about to empty the bag when I touched the furry pom-pom I had attached to my keychain days before. I took out the keys, opened the door, and once I was inside, I locked the car. The street was empty. No one was screaming my name or running after me, and I took a deep breath before starting the motor. When I passed the campus gates, I felt light and smiled. I was free, and I felt happy. Before entering the highway, I stopped at the last traffic light and adjusted the mirror. I could not even remember the last time I touched it. And then, when I lowered it, I saw them smiling at me and waving. I tried to open the door. I wanted to jump out, but Amir moved his arm to my neck and pinned me to my seat. Ezra moved to the front slowly, while I struggled to move or breathe. Suddenly, everything hurt, and I did the only thing I could. I pushed the gas pedal with my foot, and my ankle cracked, making the pain even worse. Ezra took the wheel, while I tried to free myself from the strangling arm. But Amir whispered in my ear, "This will happen, whether you like it or not. I gave you the choice." His teeth sank into my neck, and as the pressure increased in my skin and the wound started to burn, I felt my life running away from me. The blood spilt over my white dress, forming stains that seemed broken rose petals. And shortly after, my head fell on Ezra's lap, and the car stopped in the middle of the highway. "Move her," said Amir. And Ezra grabbed my body and threw it to the back seat like I was weightless. Amir sat in the driver's seat, and once Ezra sat by his side, the car started again. I could barely breathe. The only thought in my mind was how much blood I had lost, and how much more was now running down the leather I was lying in. I had no more pain, but I was starting to feel cold. And although I wanted desperately to scream and cry, I just couldn't. He betrayed me, I thought. He's helping him. I heard the sound of the radio buzzing, and then the music. Sympathy for the devil. Really? I thought, and I felt like laughing, though I couldn't. Would he now take the end of his sleeves and take them out of his jacket? What would the 16-year-old me have done in this situation? I should have been given an option and not forced into this. The sun was rising when I woke up. Everything around me was flooded with orange light, and I felt the warmth as the first rays touched my skin. I did not want to open my eyes fully, but I understood I was not gone, at least not completely, which meant I still had the right to see the sun again. It burned at first, though. Everything hurt, but I did not mind. It was like something else was pushing for me, and my body did not belong to me anymore. I was still in the back of the car, and my dress and the seat were drenched in red. My blood. How had I lost so much blood? Why was I awake? I raised my head, and my neck cracked. I never liked that sound, but that day, it was scarier than ever. The light passing through the front window blinded me for a second, but when I got used to it, I saw someone sitting in the passenger seat. I opened my mouth, but the words did not come out. Ezra, I thought, convinced that I still had that power on me, that he would listen to my thoughts, that he would attend my command if Amir were far away from us. Ezra, please. But he did not turn. I moved my arm. I wanted to sit, but I couldn't. My limbs failed me, and the only thing I managed was to grab his arm and fall to the car floor. He moved then, but not the way I expected. I was still holding his sleeve when I saw the blood crossing his arm, the wound in his neck, and his eyes opened, lost, lifeless. Then someone opened the door, grabbed me by the ankles, and dragged me out of the car. I felt the pain once more, like someone was stabbing me with those expensive shoes I had bought weeks before. When my head hit the floor, I closed my eyes. I did not want to see what was about to happen. You complain too much, said Amir, though I knew I was the only one who could hear him. There he was, again, inside my head. You are such a romantic, he continued. He was not helpful, no matter how much you tried to make him. He was not worthy. He helped you, I thought. He was just a pretty puppet. And the puppets are good to play. I still had my eyes closed and felt a tear running down my face. He'll kill me, This all will pass, I thought. Don't be ridiculous, I heard. We have work to do. I don't like to waste talent, tama, or blood. You should know that about me already. After getting rid of Ezra, he lifted my body as if I were a little rag doll and sat me in the passenger seat. The leather was sticky and smelled funny, but sweet. You'll recover soon. Don't worry. You'll be buying new shoes in no time, he said, as he started the car and put on his sunglasses. The car moved away, and as the sunlight warmed my face, I knew I'd have to come up with a better plan to leave that life, that work, and that man. So today's story has come to an end. Or perhaps it never really ended. There are mysteries still there, questions still unanswered, and sometimes things that seem to only exist in stories can creep into reality in unexpected ways. Are you sure that when you turn off the sound, everything around you will still be normal as before? Or is there something watching you? Either way, always remember that these are just stories, or at least we want to believe that they are. If you like moments of suspense, tension, and breathlessness, don't forget to follow me so you don't miss the next stories. And next time, when you come back, make sure you are ready, because what awaits you may be even scarier than you thought. See you again if you still have the courage to continue listening.